Tim Y, the History Guy, bringing you another episode of Winchester 101. This time we focus on some of Winchester's civil rights history, particularly that impacting the city's black population in recognition of the upcoming Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. We'll look at the actions of some people of color who had a role in changing segregationist rules that barred access to opportunity in Winchester. People like Thomas Rouss, Dr. Henry Moss Brooks, and Ruth Jackson. Winchester has come a long way from the Civil War era of the mid-19th century, when many African Americans were considered property and denied or severely limited with regard to rights such as voting. In a new book, To Be Free Someday, Race and Freedom in the Shenandoah Valley During the Civil War Era, Shenandoah University professor Jonathan Noyalis compiles accounts from numerous Shenandoah Valley slaves. His research repudiates the myths about conditions for African Americans in the Shenandoah Valley, as incorrectly put forth with the Lost Cause movement of the early 20th century. He documents the struggles that they endured and the risks that they took to ultimately gain freedom and create a better life. One of the many brave men from that period was Thomas Rouss, who, as a slave, was allowed to transport goods between areas like Winchester that in the fall of 1864 was occupied by Confederate troops, and areas occupied by or otherwise under the control of Union troops, such as Berryville. Rouss agreed to carry a message from Union sympathetic Quaker Rebecca Wright, who had written an account of Confederate troop strength in Winchester at the request of Union General Philip Sheridan. General Sheridan was preparing for battle against Confederate General Jubal Early. The intelligence provided by the brave actions of Wright and Rouss proved beneficial in the Third Winchester Battle in September of 1864. It would represent the last time that the Confederate Army occupied Winchester. The rights obtained by blacks during the post-Civil War Reconstruction era included the right to vote and hold elected office, but these were soon undone by the subsequent period of redemption, where Southern states, like Virginia, rewrote their constitutions and rescinded or severely limited those rights via Jim Crow laws. These changes to state law were empowered by the Byrd political machine, including segregationist measures by Governor and then U.S. Senator Harry F. Byrd Sr., a native of Winchester. Following the U.S. Supreme Court finding segregation to be unconstitutional in 1954 and then again in 1955, Senator Byrd called for massive resistance, which in 1958 effectively cut off state aid to any school in Virginia that integrated. This particularly hurt minority students whose families could not afford to send them to private schools. Local amateur historian Judy Humbert told recently about how black students in the North Kent Street neighborhood who had attended the Douglas School instead wished to attend John Hanley High School, where there was a greater variety of courses. Both the Winchester School Board and the State Board of Education denied the request. It was not until 1962 when the Virginia Supreme Court decision required integrated schools. A precursor to integrating Winchester public schools was the efforts of Henry Moss Brooks while a college student. Well into the 1950s, the Hanley Library was a segregated facility. Head librarian C. Vernon Eddy had established many rules for library patrons, one of which was that black residents could not check out books other than picking them up for white families. In 1953, Brooks was working on a paper for a class at the University of Virginia, and Eddy denied him use of the library. Brooks and 3 others confronted City Council to secure library privileges for the community's black population, which otherwise had to use an inferior branch at the Douglas School. The brave move by Brooks paid off, as the council-appointed library board ruled against Mr. Eddy and instructed him to integrate the facilities. Dr. H.M. Brooks as Henry Moss Brooks would later be known, also came up with a clever way to secure employment for people of color in the businesses along Loudon Street. He quietly met with the white business owners and got them to agree in a coordinated manner to hire at least one black employee. That way, no single business would economically suffer being boycotted by white customers opposed to the hiring of black people. Another quiet leader in the civil rights movement was Ruth Jackson, who, together with her husband, operated Ruth's Tea Room on East Cecil Street near the corner of South Kent Street. Ruth's daughter Vivian Jackson recalls her mother applying for a liquor license back when Virginia required separate entrances for black and white customers. Since the place already had two entrances, the permit was issued. Jackson sat people in different sections, but that didn't mean they stayed there. Jackson recalled the restaurant being the type of place that served people from all walks of life, where they all got along. Yes, Winchester has come a long way since its pre-Civil War days. In 1975, amid growing racial tension at Hanley High School, Effie Davis was appointed as the first black member of City Council. She would later be elected to that position. In November of 2016, John David Smith became Winchester's first black mayor. At his first council meeting as mayor in January of 2018, he was elected by a majority of his fellow councilors as president of City Council. Another black councilman, John Hill, was elected vice mayor in 2018. Civil War slave Thomas Laws could probably never have imagined a black mayor here in Winchester, but his brave actions in 1864 helped to make that possible. Well, that's it for me, Tim Y., the History Guy, until the next episode of Winchester 101.